So, yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. It's been a long day at work. The roads are not too great, so I'm getting ready to head out and head home so I can finish my work day at home. Just got about an hour's worth of work left to do. So, wanted to make a quick video though before I got in the car here. I'm letting my windows defrost here with ice on them, so because my ice scraper is broken. A lot of the videos I've made have been, and I apologize. Let me see if I can find something to stand this on. Let's see what we can do here. That's not going to work. What if we did that? Still not the greatest. I wish I had one of those deals. Hang on one second. I'm going to pause this. Well, not pause it, because I didn't pause it. Usually I have like a cup in here that I can... Here, let's try this. There we go. So this has been the weirdest start to a video ever. Anyway, let's put it right here. I should just delete this and start over, but I'm not going to, because that's part of my channel. Is I'm very real, and I don't edit, I don't cut, I don't do jump cuts, and it's probably why I have 17 followers. But then again, I make these videos for myself and for a handful of people that watch them when I post them on Facebook. So it's mostly for people to have a discussion around, the handful of people that I like to have discussions with. So if I reach a larger audience, that's great, and I'm glad that you're watching if you are part of that outside audience. Anyway, so this video is not about the Royals and not about sports. It's going to be about Horizon Zero Dawn, and I've if you look at some of my other playlists out there, I did a complete walkthrough, or not a walkthrough, a complete playthrough, 25 videos on Horizon Zero Dawn, and I started the playthrough on the Frozen Wilds, and I've defeated the Frozen Wilds before, the DLC, but I've yet to pick it back up and make the videos and post them on YouTube. Partly because I got so heavily invested and involved in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I finally defeated that game, and I'm just working on the DLC for that right now. And I'm kind of embarrassed, I've got over 100 hours into that game. Man, that's a lot of time to put into a video game. But yeah, I've got a ton of hours into Assassin's Creed Odyssey. But I was kind of rewatching some of my videos, some of those playthrough videos, and one of the things I mentioned in one of them was talking about kind of what I wanted to see in Horizon Zero Dawn 2. And there's going to be a sequel, obviously. And so if you're watching this, obviously you know how Horizon Zero Dawn ends, and where they're going to go from there is anyone's guess. And there's a couple of really cool YouTube channels. There's one I follow. It doesn't have a ton of subscribers. He only got about 5,000 subscribers, but it's called Lore. Well, he calls it Lore Bites, but I think the name of his channel is called Random Side Quests. I really enjoyed his videos that he makes. He really gets into the inner workings and kind of the lore behind the world of Horizon Zero Dawn. And one of the things that I really want to see going forward, and one of the things I mentioned in my video, was having Aloy visit other parts of the world. And currently where they're currently at is in the kind of the Utah area, Utah, Colorado, kind of the West essentially. And they talk about the Forbidden West, and I don't know too much about the Forbidden West, anything past Utah. So I would imagine there's something really wrong out there of why it's forbidden, why you can't go there. Perhaps there's something to do in the Forbidden West. What I want to get into, though, is I want to get more into what caused the unknown signal to Gaia in order for which led to the birth of Aloy. And there's been a lot of debate about what this unknown signal was. Who contacted Gaia? Somebody contacted Gaia, and somebody was what led to the unknown signal? Obviously, Aloy was a contingency plan. It was obviously she's the not reincarnation, but she is the reingestation of Dr. Elizabeth Sobek, and which allowed her to enter all the facilities and, obviously, and repair Gaia and purge Hades. But Hades, as we know, as we saw at the end credit scene, is not purged. I mean, he's now in the possession of Silence, who I don't believe was controlling Hades any of that time. I think Silence is just out for himself and just wants knowledge of what happened. Where did they come from? And one of the things that I said I'd like to see her go to different parts of the world, different parts of the former United States. Obviously, she's limited to basically, how far she can get somewhere on the back of a Strider or the back of a Longhorn or something like that, or whatever those other ones, Broadheads. So she can't go very far, and there's no cars, no planes. What I would be interested to see, though, when it comes to the unknown signal, is it somehow related to somebody who's survived, maybe in something like cryosleep. I don't think Ted Farrow's story is over, and I'm wondering if perhaps there's something more insidious that he was doing as to maybe why he murdered the Alphas. Now, he murdered the Alphas because he didn't want Apollo to be turned on, and so the society at large that was birthed out of the Creative facilities did not get to partake in the history and the teachings and the learnings of our people, of our current society. And to him, it was a disease, and he didn't want to give. His point. I kind of paraphrasing here, but he said, we're going to give them. We're going to give them a cure. We're going to cure them, but then we're going to give them the disease. We're going to give them our disease. He said, he didn't want to do that. He wanted him to be born into like almost ignorance, and as Silence says, blighted ignorance. And I somewhat understand why Ted did what he did. Now he murdered the Alphas because he didn't want them to reverse it. So obviously there's something going on there. I don't think all copies of Apollo were purged. And I'm wondering if maybe the second game has something to do with recovering Apollo and recovering that data, that knowledge. Because what's one thing that you see there? There's those royal gardens outside of Meridian where you see some farming. Other than that, you don't see agriculture at all. You don't see beasts of burden. You don't see a lot of large crops being grown outside of that one little area. It is literally hunter-gatherer society. There's something else that they don't have. And go back and look at it. Do you remember when Ross gives the bow to Aloy for the very first time? And she's got the focus on, in her ear, and she's messing with it, she's playing with it or whatever. And then when he hands it to her and says, take your bow, the word bow comes up, B-O-W, comes up on the screen, within the holographic realm of the focus of the network. And she kind of quizzically looks at it like that, but it's like she doesn't recognize what that is. Now, obviously, they speak English, but do they write it? And so think about this. Is there anything that you remember from Horizon Zero Dawn 1 where there's written language? Where there's books? There's one guy who talks about if you I don't remember. It was the guy who lost his daughter, thought his daughter was dead, and then she turns out she was on that island, and she was trying to run away with that one guy who ends up being captured by the Shadow Carja and killed. And then Arhas, or what is his name? I can't remember his name. But anyway, you talk to him. It's right out. It's right by those gardens. Essentially, he's in charge of some of those gardens there, right outside Meridian. And one of the things that he mentioned, where was I going with? Oh, he talked about when he was kind of being very remorseful about losing his daughter, when he was speaking to her, like trying to convince her to stay and that he loves her. He was talking about all the edicts that he wrote and that he put together. So obviously there's some form of written communication, but other than that, you don't see a lot of anything else. You don't see books. You don't see words written places. Everything is passed on verbally, and that is the mark of a very ancient civilization. You think about what sets us apart, what has always set us apart. Obviously, communication is one thing, but the ability to develop language and to write language down and to use that language to communicate and then be able to translate it into other languages. That's how we engage in acts of commerce with other countries, peoples that speak different languages than we do. And when you're able to record that history, the history stays on, and then things don't drift into legend. That's one of the things where, when you talk about things like Greek mythology, Norse mythology, Roman mythology, Egyptian mythology, and people automatically say, well, those stories are crazy. I mean, they're nice stories, but they didn't really exist. I don't believe they existed either, but I am very, very confident in saying this. I said all mythology, all of our myths have some basis in fact. And it's just that the stories get twisted and added to over time because they weren't written down. It's like playing the telephone game. You sit in a circle of 20 kids. You sit 20 fourth graders down, and you tell one kid to say, okay, you whisper in his mouth or in his ear, eat the cherry pie. And then he whispers, eat the cherry pie. And by the time it gets all the way around back to him, it's probably like, pass the potatoes or something like that. Eat the cherry pie is not going to come all the way back around. And now some people play that game and they purposefully, say something different just to throw people off. But if you do it the correct way, you're still not going to get the same result. So that's kind of the downfall of having something where you're some kind of just an audible record of, or just word of mouth record of the events. So when you begin to write things down, things begin to stick to it. And I think that, so if we get back to Horizon 2 here, if you can get to a situation where you're trying to locate you confirm that some version of Apollo exists, and then that's your driving force, because then all of a sudden you not only learn about the final days, you learn about all the other history too. Now, there's a lot of bad history there, obviously, but there's a lot of great history too. And maybe it's more of just the education of it, on how to domesticate animals, how to raise crops, how to develop machines to do those type of works for you. Like, I'm talking about like tractors and combines, and and how to be more efficient in harvesting crops. What kind of soil is needed to for certain crops to grow, and what's the proper temperature? How much sunlight does something need? What internal temperature do you have meat cooked to so you don't get sick? What vegetables are good? What vegetables are not good to eat? That sort of thing. What's the best kind of wood to cook with? When you're pairing it up with different, types of things that you're cooking. I mean, all of that is important, and all of that is information that is stored and should be passed on. It wasn't just the war. It wasn't just the violence that was going to be passed on to these people. And I think that's what Ted Faro missed. So I would love to see some kind of a game, some kind of a sequel where they're trying to find this Alpha Apollo registry or something like that. And now, how do you make an antagonist to that? I don't know. I think Ted Faro, I think he's still around. Maybe, or maybe if he's not, maybe someone finds out, maybe finds his information, finds his bunker, and carries on his wishes, and then finds this registry, this Apollo registry that still exists, and perhaps they're the ones that sent the unknown signal. I don't know. I could be completely off base here. We might just get a kind of run-of-the-mill sequel that doesn't raise the stakes at all, which is something I did mention in my final video, video number 25 on the playthrough, is that you're going to have to raise the stakes somehow. Aloy has saved the world again from global extinction by purging Hades from machines of old. You're going to have some bigger threat than that, or a very personal threat. If you think back to like the Mass Effect series, excuse me, Mass Effect 1 ended. Mass Effect 1's threat was not just Saren, but it was Sovereign, the Reaper. But we didn't really know that there were tons of other Reapers around. But what we learned as this game went on was that Sovereign was the key. He was the one who was going to open the gateway, essentially, and let all the other Reapers come in and slaughter all the advanced civilizations. And you put a stop to that. So that's kind of a galactic-wide thing, but all you did was pause it. Now, Mass Effect 2, it doesn't raise the stakes in terms of the type of extinction, because really it's the Reapers are finding a different method, and so now they're going to tell a story of the Collectors and gathering human DNA to build a human Reaper. I think one of the things that Mass Effect 2 does so well is because it gets more personal. It doesn't get on a larger scale in terms of the threat, because I think Sovereign's threat was more of a threat than the Collector's threat. If you really think about the main story missions or the main quest missions of Mass Effect 2, there's like four or five. There's not that many. Most of the story is told through your interactions with your counterparts, your interactions with your teammates, and doing their loyalty missions. You learn about them. It's a very personal story, and that's why Mass Effect 2 worked so well, and it remains one of my favorite games of all time. Mass Effect 3 just dials it up to 11, and obviously the Reapers come in and start kicking butt, and then you've got to find a way to get rid of them, and then the story ends. So what does Horizon Zero Dawn 2 do? I think honestly what they do is maybe go to a more personal route. Maybe whoever sent this unknown transmission is the antagonist. It might be Silence. I don't know. I can't see that happening. I think Silence ends up redeeming himself at some point, but I would love to see it intermixed somehow with Apollo. I think that would make perfect sense. So, well, we're getting closing in on 19 minutes here of this video, and I do got to get on the road. My car is finally thawed out. So, I do appreciate you watching this. Give me a like or a thumbs up if you liked this, and if you'd like to see anything else, anything I'd like to talk about, or you'd like to hear my opinion on something, just let me know. Thanks a lot. Have a nice day.